Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I'm talking to Mark Baker. To say that Mark's had a varied life could be a bit of an understatement. When we recorded this podcast, I literally didn't know nothing about him. And when the subjects that came up did, it was quite a surprise. And we spoke about stuff that I'd never known anything about. Mark joined the Royal Artillery and he served with 3-4 battery. He tells us what it was like in training and what it was like when he served at 3-4 battery. And he also tells us why he was discharged from the army for failing a compulsory drug test. And then what happened to him later on in life when he ended up falling on the wrong side of the law and being sentenced to 12 years. Like I say, it was a bit of a shock. It's a bit of a different one, this podcast. I hope you enjoy it. I did. I enjoyed it. Mark's got a good outlook on life. Right, so crack on with it and cheers. If you like this podcast or the previous ones, please consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Frankie'sPod. It just goes to help fund the software and the hosting. Right, hello, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm talking to Mark Baker. Mark joined the Royal Artillery in 1989. Hi Mark, how are you doing?
I'm fine, you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate, I'm good. So like all the other people who have on the podcast, I'm just going to ask the same questions and stuff like that. So if you just want to tell us where you grew up and why you joined the army.
Okay. I grew up in a place called Wordsley, which is near Dudley in Black Country. I always wanted to be in the army. Ever since my earliest memories, I've always wanted to be a soldier.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go in junior leaders when I was 16, but I broke my leg really badly. And they were actually on about chopping the bottom of my leg off because it was that bad.
Jesus.
Fortunately, I had this little Indian doctor, didn't speak a word of English, but over the course of a week and 3 or 4 operations, he manipulated all the bones back into place. And so I kept going for tests to the Army Centre in Wolverhampton. They kept saying, no, your leg's too badly buggered. You can't go in. And I worked for this company called Colour Roll at the time. And the Red Devils, they used to sponsor the Red Devils.
All right.
And they came round and give us a free parachute jump. So I went and did that. As soon as I'd done that and I went back up the Army Recruitment Centre, I told them I'd done that. They sent me to Woolwich Hospital to see a specialist. I walked in there, they took some x-rays of my leg, and he says they've given you problems, which he hadn't. It never given me any problems. And I told him I'd done a parachute jump. He went, right, you're in, that's it. So I didn't actually get in until I was 22, almost 23.
Right.
So I was one of the oldest in basic training. By quite a bit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Absolutely fucking loved it from the get-go. I mean, I loved it. I loved the discipline. I loved what we were doing. I loved the fitness. I loved everything about it. It was me, down to a fucking T. I did 5 weeks in Mine Troop, and then we were playing football. I broke my wrist, so I had to get back squadded. I did 12 weeks in remedial. And then when Mine Troop had a fresh intake in, the Sergeant Pete Shannon come over to the block at Cellblock, I think it was, and he took me over to the troop. And as you know, in your first week's training, they're all sat in the room, all 45 blokes, all looking up, not knowing what the fuck's going on. They'd only been there like 4 or 5 days, all these guys.
Yeah.
And by that time, I'd been there. I'd been in the army over 6 months. I was really fit. I walked in there, Pete Shand, and he turned around to these 45 guys. He said, right, this is Gunner Baker. Don't ask us what to do. Fucking ask him. And just left me there with these 45 kids. So, you know what I mean? But we had a great troop. We had a fantastic troop. I was troop leader from the get-go, which you don't usually get that till like week 6, 7, something like that.
Yeah.
But he made me in charge of the troop. I did 7 weeks with them, and my fitness was starting to go backwards for some reason. I didn't know. I mean, when they all started doing BFTs, I was miles out in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And I was loving it, you know what I mean? I thought, I'm fucking Superman here, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it turns out, I started slowing down, didn't know why, but I was in agony, my legs were hurting. Bone scanned me, turns out I've got stress fractures in both my legs. So I thought, fucking great. They're on about kicking me out. They said, you know, you got too many injuries, you can't do it. But fortunately, through Pete Shan, through the Sergeant Major time, Phil Silver, great bloke, they said, no, bugger that, he's staying in. And Phil Silver, instead of sending me back to El Tabia to after 4 or 5 weeks to get fit again, he just said, no, come and work in the office. So I went to work as basically a T-boy and a runner for in the regimental office. Phil Silver said, well, what do you want to do in the artillery? I said, well, I don't really know, but if I'm going to stay in the artillery, I want to learn guns or something. But he said, well, what about the Ink Corps? And I said, well, I don't know if I can get in. I haven't got 2 levels on paper. And he said, bugger that, I'll send you down there. So I went down to Ashford in Kent, stayed there for a weekend, passed the tests with those for ops and security, which is what I wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a linguist, you know what I mean? I wanted to do ops and security. I had a letter from the Ink Corps saying, yep, we've accepted him, no problem. Go back to Woolwich, we'll send you your joining instructions. And then about a week later, the brigadier in charge of Woolwich said, no, he can't go. He's got to stay in the artillery. So, okay, I'll stay in the artillery then. But Phil Silver said to me, well, what do you want to do if you're going to stay in here for a while? He said, you can transfer out afterwards. Don't worry about that. You know, go to a unit and then get a transfer. He said, so what do you want to do? I was down to go to 3-9 Heavy Regiment, which was my local regiment. And he said, well, if you go and join them, you're just basically going to be sat in a gun shed polishing your guns all year. You'll never fire them. He said, you might fire them once a year. Yeah. Well, that's a bit boring, isn't it? You know what I mean? So he says, well, I've got a mate, Richie Druitt. He's a battery sergeant major at 3-4 battery, and they, at the school, go out and fire the guns virtually every day. So if you want to learn about the guns, that's where to go. So, yeah, great, I'll get there then. So he sent me there. First day on parade, Richie Druitt calls me out in front of everybody, introduces me to everybody. This is Gunner Baker. Then he turned around and said, he won't be with you long. He's a clever fucker. He's going to the Ink Corps. So, right. That just made me a lot of enemies all of a sudden out of nowhere. And then they said to me, right, you're going to the command post. And I went, nah, I ain't doing that, mate. I don't want to go in fucking command post, sat in the back of a truck. I didn't come here for that. So they put me on a gun. With the most pedantic bastard sergeant you could ever meet in your fucking life. I am not kidding. Anybody who was there at the time will tell you this guy was the most pedantic bastard you ever met in your life. I mean, he used to make me come down, and another guy who joined at the same time, come down with trousers and shirt on a coat hanger to show we could iron them. This is like, you know, I'm not a trainee anymore, you know what I mean? All the other guys in the unit were going, that ain't right, you know what I mean? He's a fucking idiot. So he was with us for about 2 or 3 months. And then at the same time, Richie Druitt left, and that sergeant left to go somewhere else. And we had a guy who'd just been made up to a bombardier, who was a bit of a bully. And I've got to think about bullies. I fucking hate them. Yeah. Yeah, but, you know, quickly, I was beginning to realise quickly that I was in the wrong fucking occupation. So Richie Druitt left. We had a new sergeant major. His first day in office, he calls me into the office. He said, Gunner Baker, you're the troublemaker. I said, excuse me, sir? He said, you're the troublemaker. You've been late for duty 7 times. I said, no, I haven't. He said, yeah, you have. I said, no, I havenent. He said, well, one of my close personal mates has told me you have. I said, well, your close personal mate's a fucking liar. Get him in here, let's have it out. Let's have it. And he went, no, I won't do that. So he starts looking through the punishment book. What did he find? 1 entry when I was 1 minute late. Yeah. That was all I did. And I said, I've only been late once in my life, and I'd never do it again. It was a genuine mistake. But so that was how I got off with him for his first day there, my BSM. Right?
Not a good start.
Great, yeah. So for the next couple of years, I did what I could. I got my head down. I became the best fucking gunner I could be. I was the best gun layer in the battery, without a doubt, and people will tell you that. Smig stood next to me when we fought. We used to go out and fire 3-4 times a week on average. Yeah. We'd take the guns out and we'd fire. Anybody who had to learn to direct artillery fire came to our battery or 7.6 battery, and they took the guns out and used those. So it went on for a couple of years. I didn't get any courses, didn't get nothing off these people, absolutely nothing. We had a great gun sub though. I mean, it ended up with just the bombardier there. Our Lance bombardier went off to Kenya. He was a really good guy. And so by that time, I'd become the senior gunner on the gun. So I ran the gun how I wanted it ran. And the gun was the best fucking gun in the Royal Artillery. I'm not being big-headed by saying that, but that crew at that time, for those 2 or 3 years, with the amount of firing we did and everything else, we were the best light gun crew in the Royal Artillery, mate, without a doubt. Went to Belize with them, had a fantastic time over there. Great time. My problem was...
I've just realised something. So when you went to Belize, we took over from you, 3 battery. You went because that was our tour, right?
Yeah.
We'd just come back from the Gulf.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to send us to Belize. So you lot went to Belize in 4-7 Regiment, or 4-7 Field at the time. Each battery took it in turn doing 2 months up at... So we moved into your block and we did 3-4 batteries job for a while. I loved that. It was great. And I ended up with a telly. Somebody left a telly in the cupboard. I went, plugged it in. Does that work? No. Took it back. Fixed it. I got a fucking telly out of it. I was like, well, chuffed for that. But yeah, so when you were in Belize, we took over your job. I remember the SIG store. We went in the SIG store and half of it was all boxed up and locked up and they'd locked the door. They didn't lock it well enough. I think when you come back from Belize, half the signals and kit was missing because it was all down in fucking 4-7.
Probably, yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, so a lot of people won't realise that before 3-4 battery was in the RE post and it was a static battery. That's all they did, and people stayed there for forever. But not forever, but for quite a long time.
10 years. Got to be about 10 years over there, I think.
Yeah. But then all of a sudden it changed to an ARE posting, and they brought everyone in from different regiments and stuff like that, which is, again, it's a good thing I did that years later. So what was Belize like?
Oh, brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it over there. I was always really good in the field. So whenever we moved anywhere as a unit in the jungle, I was always the scout. I was always out front on my own. Yeah. I mean, they even caught the Gurkhas ambushing us a couple of times when they'd set up ambush positions. So I'm that much of a sneaky bastard in the woods, mate. You won't see me coming. And I found them before they ambushed us. So, I got on really well with the Gurkhas over there. By that time, I had a really good troop sergeant major, Nigel Taylor. He's passed sadly since. Great bloke. And I was sat in the battery bar with him one night, and he said, when you get back to England, he said, get the fuck out of this battery, mate. He said, I've asked for you to be promoted 3 times, and they've told me as long as I've got a hole in my arse, they'll never promote me. So I was going to get out and go. I wanted to go Special Forces. That was what I was planning to do. Came back from Belize, and I had a lot of problems during my army career because I was married, and it wasn't a very peaceful marriage, I should say.
Right. Okay.
She ended up running off with a captain who'd retired.
No. Oh, fair enough.
So that went down well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then because I hid it really well, but I've always smoked weed all my life.
Right.
And of course, because I was 22 when I went in, I've been smoking it for like 6 or 7 years, and I didn't stop.
All right.
I hid it. I mean, there was people in my battery, quite a few people who I smoked with. There was people in 7.6 battery who I smoked with. It was kept really quiet. You know what I mean? It didn't let it interfere with our duties or anything like that. It was just something we did on a night. But I was anti-alcohol. I didn't like alcohol. And Belize sort of turned me into a pisshead, if you know what I mean. I mean, a proper alky over in Belize. And I just didn't like it. Anyway, I ended up splitting up with my wife. And so I'd got my promotion. I'd done my Lance Bombardier leadership course. And I was due to get it. And some other little bastard in the unit grassed me up for smoking weed.
Right.
So I got done on the first ever mandatory piss test in the British Army. The first ever one.
Well, if you're going to go down in history.
Well, before that, they could say to you, we want a piss test, and you could go, no, fuck off. They couldn't do a thing about it. But then they changed the law, and they had me on it. So they did me for it. Give me all this, you can stay and you grass everybody up, and piss off, you know what I mean? I ain't doing that. Which I couldn't do that out of principle. Yeah. But it did upset me that a few people who I smoked with then didn't want to know me afterwards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Just because you'd been caught, yeah.
Yeah, because I was persona non grata. By that time, we'd got another BSM in, a ginger guy, who'd heard about the trouble that I'd with the last one and threatened to beat the fuck out of me. He was from Paris, so I said, well, let's take the berry off, let's take the jumper off, could be on the gun sheds and fucking sort it out. He'd have killed me. Let's not get it wrong, he'd have killed me. But I wasn't going to have it, you know what I mean? I don't like that. Nobody's going to bully me like that. And so he got me out. He wanted me out, they got me out. And I left in 94, absolutely fucking broken-hearted. Absolutely broken-hearted. For the next 10 years, I didn't care what I did. Didn't give a fuck about anything, about life. I couldn't stick a job. I mean, I'd do a job for, and it's still to this day, I'm still the same like that. I start work doing something, and within 3 or 4 months, if I can't improve it or anything, I'm bored with it. I don't want to know anymore. Yeah. I've had enough, you know. So that happened a lot. It wasn't until my daughter was born in 2005, and she's 18 now, that in my own head it turned it around that, well, I would not have met her mother if I'd have been in the army. So I would never have had my daughter. So in a way, did me a favour. I'd rather have my daughter than anything else in the world. So, yeah, you know what I mean? It did me a favour. But the early 2000s, the late 90s, the early 2000s, when Afghanistan went on, when Iraq went on, yeah, and I'd still got friends who were there, friends who were serving, and it broke my heart that I couldn't be with them. Do you know? I mean, it really did. I mean, suicidal ain't the word. You know, I just didn't give a shit about anything. But fortunately, when my daughter was born, it changed all that. It still hurts to this day. Don't get me wrong, that I didn't get to do what I should have done in the army. Yeah. It wasn't the army's fault. It was my fault. Don't get me wrong. It's, you know, I broke the rules. But a lot of people didn't speak to me after that, which did really upset me. I mean, I was banned from going to some guy's wedding because
it's the stigma, isn't it? It's the stigma in the military. I mean,
exactly
I joined 85, and I wouldn't say drugs were rife in the military, because they weren't. But having people smoking weed, it was just everyone knew you weren't allowed to do it. You know, because it's against military law and stuff like that. Yeah. But people did do it, and it was people kind of turned a blind. You knew who was smoking it, as long as they weren't idiots. And that's it. You know, it was kind of fine. It was kind of it was unwritten. You know what I mean? But it's always that. I mean, you know, it was illegal in the army, and it still is. You know, did you never think that maybe I shouldn't?
Yeah, bro. I also thought I'd never get caught. Do you know what I mean?
You know, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it was my way of chilling out. I mean, I've smoked it. I still smoke it today. Don't you know what I mean? I'd be a fucking hypocrite if I didn't, really. Yeah. But I mean, I'd one of my smoking partners was a sergeant major. I actually met him right when I went in to buy some weed at this girl's house down in Salisbury. He sat there, innit, when I walked in there. And I'm like, don't know what to say anything. You know, he didn't recognise me, right, because I hadn't been there that long. He didn't recognise me. I knew who he was straight away because he was very distinguished, if you should say. You know what I mean? And I sat down and I'm chatting with him, and I rolled up a joint, smoked the joint with him, and I turned around and I said, when you're next on duty, sir? He went, what? I went, yeah. He said, how the fuck do you know that? I said, because I'm in your unit. I'm in I'm at the same place as you at Lark Hill. He went, really, really? I went, yeah. Anyway, the next guard, funnily enough, the next guard I was on, he was on. So, guess who got stick man? You know what I mean? But, you know, there was a lot of people I smoked with. I mean, what really upset me was the little bastard who grassed me up. He was popping pills every weekend.
So
he was going out doing it.
Yeah, so
he was going out doing these.
Yeah, sorry.
He was going out and popping these pills every weekend. I don't do pills. You know what I mean? Never done them in my life. But he was doing that, and then he grasses me up smoking. Little bastard.
Yeah. I mean, that was the other unwritten rule. He didn't mind people smoking a bit of weed, but as soon as they started taking, anything stronger or out like that,
well,
that was like,
I didn't know that he was doing that, not till afterwards.
Yeah.
But even if I'd have known that, I still wouldn't have said nothing.
Yeah.
Just, principle. But for the next... I lived in Salisbury. After they kicked me out, I lived in Salisbury for about 5 or 6 years. And that little fucker and a couple of his mates never came to Salisbury again. Never. and last year, I went to a reunion. I must tell you this. I had a mate who, when I was serving, and he was 21. He went to Bournemouth with his daughter for her birthday, I believe it was. And he walked into the sea and he dived into a wave and it broke his neck. I mean, paralysed from literally from the shoulders down.
Yeah.
And we did a sponsored run up to where he lived in Carlisle, near Carlisle, a place called Lauca. We did loads of things for him to help him out. And they could only keep him until the end of his contract, and then he had to leave. And I lost touch with him. And a couple of years ago, I went onto the 34 Battery website, and I found him. So I phoned him up, and we got in contact. And I've been up to see him 3 or 4 times since then.
Yeah.
Last year, he organised a reunion, and I went, and all the guys were there that I hadn't seen for 30 years. A lot of guys were there that I hadn't seen for 30 years. And it was very cathartic for me because some of them, like a guy called Chris, who I absolutely loved, he was my Lance Bombardier, he was a great kid. I wanted to apologise to him because for me, I'd let them down. Do you get what I mean? For being done for that. I'd let them down.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I needed him to know that. And I did. But it was very cathartic in what he said and everything, and what the others said who I was there. I mean, it was great to meet them. I spent the entire night outside smoking weed, talking to them. The same people. And the best of it is, one of them who really hated me for doing it, I'm stood outside smoking a joint with my mate, talking to somebody, and this woman came out. And she went, I can smell weed. And I'm like hiding it behind her back so it ain't us, you know what I mean? And she's going, it's only because I want some. And we're like, what? So I said, look, just have a couple of drags because you've never had it before. Be careful. And while she was having a drag, I looked at her. I know you. I said, your name Tracy? She went, yeah. I said, I know you. And I told her who I was. She went, oh, give me a hug and all this. She was the wife of one of the people who I knew.
Yeah.
Who were really anti with me for smoking weed, you know what I mean? So it was quite funny. I'm stood there 30 years later smoking a fucking joint with his wife. But it was great to see all the guys. There was lots of hugs, big tears, and but it was good to see them.
Yeah.
And it lifted a big weight off me in a way. It really did. And I've always got to thank Dave for that, because I know Dave sort of did that with me in mind a little bit to get everybody to go there and get me to go there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for years and years afterwards, it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't until my daughter was born that my attitude towards everything changed. And then I also reached, like, the guy who grassed me up, I forgive him. If I'd have seen him, he didn't go to the reunion because I was there, because he knows this. I mean, I told people at the reunion, if I'd have seen him and a couple of others straight after I got kicked out when I lived in Salisbury, I'd have killed the motherfuckers. Yeah. I'd have killed them. Out of principle. Just out of principle. But now, I would shake his hand and say, you did me a favour, mate. I've got my little girl. You know what I mean?
That's fair enough. Yeah. So you do regret the old... I suppose you don't regret smoking the weed while you were in because you've never stopped, or it's been part of your life. I mean, my oldest brother's the same. He's smoked weed all his life. He doesn't drink. I do regret it in a way because a couple of years ago, I had half a lung taken out. Right.
That's mainly due to just smoking anyway, cigarettes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So health-wise, it's not been brilliant for me.
No.
But I'm not intending to stop. I'm going to carry on till I die. But anyway, after that, I sorted my life out. I went to university. I was trained to be a teacher. I've got a brother who's heroin addict. Has been for 40 years.
Wow.
and he decided to rob me of 38 grand, and then he attacked me with a hammer.
Nice.
So I took it off him and wailed the fucker. Got me 12 years in jail.
Fucking hell, mate.
Yep. So I had to do 6 years.
Yeah.
I've been out like 4 years now since I did my 6. I mean, that was a shock. I'd never been in trouble since I left the army. I'd never been arrested for anything since I'd left the army. I'd led a good life. The only thing they could ever do me for was smoking weed. You know what I mean? I didn't used to sell it. I just used to buy myself a little bit and smoke it. That was it. So I went to jail 6 years. That was a fucking shock to the system, I can tell you.
I bet it was.
Because I tell you what, 99% of those people that are in jail, they fucking deserve to be in jail. They're animals, mate. They're fucking animals, honestly.
So which nick were you in?
You don't realise how bad some people can be till you're amongst them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I had a good time in jail.
Right.
I did, personally. I used to work in the kitchen, so I'd get extra food. So, like, the bodybuilders always going, oh, can you sort me out a chicken or whatever? And so I'd sort them out, so I'd always get looked after, you know what I mean? Yeah. I had a great time in there. I really did. I did cooking courses for people for about 2 years, teaching people how to cook. 2 groups of 10. Every 6 weeks, they'd change over.
Yeah.
A jail before that, my proudest thing about being in jail, the one before that, at Ewell, I worked in the education department, teaching people how to read and write. And in the year that I was there, I taught 150 people how to read and write.
Wow.
And couldn't read and write a fucking letter, you know what I mean, before I went to work with them. And the best thing was one gypsy guy come to me the one day, and after he'd finished his course, he come to me, give me a big hug and everything. He said, you know what, mate? He said, I can go home when I'm out of this jail in a couple of weeks' time. I can go home and I can read my daughter a bedtime story. And that, for me, that was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did do some good in there in a way. I like to think I did a bit of good in there.
It's a bit mad when you think that there's, grown adults in in this country and in society where we live now that can't read and write.
A third of them, mate. A third of them in jail can't read and write.
I mean, it's like, here's an example. I don't know how to phrase this. So I've done, like, you're the 32nd person I've interviewed, right?
Yeah.
And most of the people I've interviewed have been in the army, done a full term or a long term and stuff like that, and left the army and have gone on to do whatever, But I've spoke to a few people who I was quite shocked to hear their story. As in, I was brought up in a decent family. I didn't have any trouble as a kid and stuff like that. The majority of the people I know have done the same. But as I've been talking to people on the podcasts, I found that life isn't rosy for everybody. Some kids had a shit upbringing, and I interviewed a guy 2 nights ago. So it'll be the one that comes out before this one. So anyone who listens to this one will have already heard the other story. And fucking hell. He said to me beforehand, he goes, it's a sad story, so be prepared. I don't want to upset your listeners. I says, hey, we've had some quite emotional ones. And he started his story, and it was just about how his family treated him as his father used to break his fingers and stuff like that as a kid. And
yeah, I did that for that.
I'm like, fucking hell. And he was homeless at 15 and stuff like this. And I was like, when I look at it that way, I think I've led quite a closeted life, or I wouldn't say a charmed life, but it's been fucking, a lot better than the majority of people. So
yeah.
I understand that the people who are out there who don't have this type of life, like you've just alluded to then, where you said, your family or your father was was aggressive.
He was an asshole, mate. Absolute fucking arsehole. Used to beat the shit out of me from the age of 10. When I was 16, I walked out the door and never went back.
It's shit, isn't it?
I
could never treat my kids like that. I've got 2 kids and 5 grandkids. And I just, anyone who knows me and knows my story knows what I'm like with them. That I couldn't, I don't understand how people can be like that. No. Like this guy who was telling me his story the other night, I was taken aback. But again, I've got guys who are working in the prison service who I know and stuff like that. So they don't really talk about what they do for obvious reasons, and they don't advertise the fact that they're in the prison service either, for obvious reasons. So how did you? So when you went to Nick, how did you find the? I hate using that word, screws, because it's a derogatory. I didn't realise it was a derogatory term.
It is a derogatory term. Yeah.
I never realised that until until 2 nights ago. I didn't know that until then, because the guy I was spoken to was he was in the army, then he was a prison officer, and then he's gone on to do something else. And he said it was, he was talking about when he was speaking to one of the inmates, saying, "Call me whatever you want. Don't call me Gov, because I don't like getting called Gov either." And he said, "Don't call me a screw." And I was like, "Oh, I thought that's what my naive brain was like. Well, I thought that's what they were called." You know what I mean, type of thing. I mean, I know why they were called it. Turning the old screw on the thumb and torture and stuff like that. But I didn't think it was that bad a term.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I've got to say, I only met one asshole prison officer.
Yeah.
The vast majority of them, great people. How they do that job, fucking beyond me, mate. I mean, the amount of abuse that they get all day, every day, off some scroty little fucking arse end who squares up to them, and they can't do nothing about it. You know what I mean? Well, occasionally they do, but the amount of shit that they get, and I always treated them with respect. I always spoke to them how I'd like how I'd like to be spoken to.
Yeah.
And at the reunion, one of the guys who was there, he's a prison officer.
Right.
So I got him to have a look at my records. Yeah. So he could check through the system and have a look at my records. And he got back to me and said, "Fucking hell, mate, you're good records. I mean, no model prisoner and all this." I said, yeah, but they didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, what I was doing.
Yeah. Because
I was a model prisoner. You know what I mean? I never got searched. I got searched once in the entire time in 6 years in 6 different jails. I only got cell searched once. And I used to come back from the cookhouse with packs of milk underneath my arms. And I'd give a few to the screws or the officers, and they'd chuck them somewhere. I'd make them a dinner or something. They'd let me bring back what the hell I wanted.
Yeah. As long as we had success out of it, yeah.
Yeah, they were great. Like when my lungs started collapsing, I was at Stoke Heath, and I was working the kitchens like that. I was training at the time, bodybuilding, and I got really big. The biggest I'd ever got. I was like 15.5 stone, and I was packed like. And I had a really severe chest pain on this side of my chest, and it didn't go away for a couple of weeks. And then eventually it went, and about a week later I was working, teaching cooking, and it felt like a horse had stamped on me. Literally stamped on my chest. I was on the floor on my knees. I couldn't get up. And the guy who's in charge of the cooking department came in, saw me. He's, "What's happened, Mark?" I said, "I don't know. I can't breathe or nothing." Called the doctor out. Doctor put the stethoscope on me. He says, "Oh, you got a collapsed lung. Hospital straight away." Took me to the hospital. I had to spend a week in each time, having a drain put in me and all sorts. And that happened 7 times in the space of 6-7 months. So it was like he was doing it virtually every month. It was doing it. My lung was collapsing. It got to the stage where as soon as it went, I'd only have to get on the bell or shout to the officer, "Officer, get the ambulance," and straight away the ambulance would be there within 20 minutes. And they were brilliant, the officers were. They even let my ex-partner come and visit with my daughter when I was in hospital.
Yeah.
They brought me cakes and sweets in and all sorts. God, I was good as gold for them. I'd never any trouble, but why should I be trouble for them? They didn't put me here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I put myself here, really, not them. It's nothing to do with them. So why blame them for it? Which is what a lot of prisoners don't get that into their heads. They like to blame the officers and whatever, but they put themselves there.
Yeah.
They're the ones who have fucked up. They're the ones who've done naughty things. How can you blame some guy or woman who's just trying to do their job? You know?
Yeah,
but honestly, mate, listen, anybody who's a prison officer, I take my hat off to them, and I will happily shake their hand every time I see them, because they do a fantastic job for not a lot of money, no gratitude whatsoever, and they get abuse all day long.
And they're in danger. You know, they're in danger, not just at work, but out of work.
Yeah, they are, yeah. Yeah, one jail I was at, the load of jippos turned up and they were waiting outside for prison officers to come out. You had to have the police there and everything, because somebody had made a threat on the inside. He'd got his mates to turn up. They're all waiting outside the jail. That's what they did. You know, that's what people are like. But another officer I was with, I didn't know at the time. I was with him for about a year and a half. He's my personal officer. I got on with him really well. When I came out of jail, a lot of my friends got in contact with me again. And one of my childhood sweethearts, when this girl used to go out with when I was 16, 17, she got in contact with me. She said, "Oh, my husband Nigel's a prison officer." And I said, "Hold on, is it Nigel so-and-so?" She went, "Yeah." I mean, fucking hell, he was my personal officer, and you know what I mean? Didn't know. I wish I'd have known at the time, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I could have gone both ways, couldn't it?
Well, yeah, but he was he was a dead straight officer, but he was a decent officer. You know what I mean? If you asked him to do anything, he'd do it for you. He'd make sure if you had a problem, he'd look into it and whatever. I mean, a lot of officers, to be fair, they do wind prisoners up because they say they'll do things and they don't do them.
Yeah.
And to a prisoner, there's no other person who's important in that world as him.
Yeah.
Nobody else has got a problem but him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the way they look at it.
That's just human nature, really, isn't it? You know, you ask in a way. So I mean,
well, yeah, it can be, but it's exacerbated in there.
Sorry, with you, like, serving time and that. What do you think of the justice system? I mean, this is totally off topic or whatever we were going to talk about, but I just want to know. So, what do you think? Does it work? Is it fucking complete bollocks? How would you, if you could, what would you do to improve it? I know that's a loaded question, yeah, but go.
Well, I'll tell you what. The week that I actually went to court, I was on remand for 6 months, and I went to court. I was told I was looking at 2 years, right. And then the judge gave me 12 because he was an ex-colonel, didn't like squaddies being in trouble. You know what I mean? And it gave me 12 years. I mean, a person who'd never been in trouble before. Give me 12 fucking years. You know what I mean? The only hot sentence he could have given me was slightly higher. It was a life.
So how did that make you feel? I mean, how did you feel when you heard them words? 12 years.
12 years. Yeah. My arse fell out, mate. My arse fell out. I'm not kidding. I'd always said to the lady who had my daughter, if I ever went to jail and they give me 12 years or above, I'd top myself. I wouldn't put up with it. And she actually came. I mean, we'd split up by then, but she came to the trial and everything. She was sat there when they said that, and she burst out of tears looking at me thinking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I went back to jail, went back on the wing. A guy gave me a joint. He said, "Come in the cell, have a smoke with me, mate. You fucking look so depressed." I told him what had happened. I just got 12 years. In that same week, there was a bloke who was in the newspaper. He got done under the same charge as me, which was GBH wounding with intent. Yeah. He had broken the leg and beaten up an 8-year-old girl. He got 6 years. That's a hard one to take.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You know, I didn't steal off my brother. I didn't fucking attack him. He attacked me, and he come off worse for it. And I get the 12 years.
What happened to him? So, did he get anything, or was he just played the victim?
No, fuck all. He's still a baghead. He's still selling. He's still fucking peddling his fucking heroin and everything. You know what I mean? But so that was gutting. Seeing things like that are really. There's no consistency, I should say.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I met another bloke in there who stabbed his wife 50 odd times and chopped her head off, and he only got 16 years.
Fucking hell.
Do you know what I mean?
You meet all the nice people.
Like the way they sentenced me was as if what they did say in court was that my brother had the money and I took it off him. I was jealous about the money. It wasn't like that at all. That wasn't the truth. That was not the truth. And anybody who knows me knows it wasn't the truth.
Right.
But I had nobody who could stand in my corner and say this. It was just my word. And because I was the one in the dock, I was the liar.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Do you know what I mean?
That's down to your lawyer to convince him otherwise, though, isn't it?
He was fucking useless. I didn't know at the time because I'd never dealt with lawyers.
I didn't know. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, mate, honestly.
He was fucking useless. Absolutely useless. I've still got grounds to appeal on these days because there were so many procedural things they didn't do. Do you know what I mean? They're supposed to offer up an agreed statement of facts, which you're supposed to have a week before you go to trial, which is an agreed statement between the prosecution and the defence about what went on. I got mine when I was sat in the dock, and then I'm called to to the stand, and the prosecutor's saying, "Well, this isn't this in this statement of fact. It says this, this, and this." And I looked at it and I went, "That's wrong." He said, "So you're changing your story now? You're a liar." How am I changing my story? I've just been given this piece of paper 10 minutes ago. I've never seen it before in my life. And yet the prosecution's saying, "Oh no, you agreed to this a week ago." And I did not. I've never seen it. But you know, such is the shit that happens. But I came out. Health had gone to shit because of my lung. So I tried getting work, but I can't even walk 100 yards now, and I'm exhausted. So that in that respect, you know, I mean, it did my head in a bit.
Yeah.
And I was having to live on like £250 a month.
Just going back a little bit, Ren, I just want to explore the prison side a bit more, if you don't mind. So
much as you want, mate.
So you've been told you're getting 12 years. You've gone back to Nick. How do you mentally prepare yourself, knowing that you're going to be serving that long? Knowing that, I mean, I can't. I kind of can like empathise with you because I've done time, but military Nick. You know, not civvy Nick. I did 6 months in Collie. Well,
I've been there as well.
3.5 months in Collie I did. Lost 2 days remission for swearing. But
I did a bit there as well.
Yeah, so I went AWOL and I got caught. And I remember the first night I got locked up. They took me... Well, I got picked up, locked up in civvy Nick in a police station for the night. They were great. They brought me a couple of tins of beer and fish and chips. It was nice. And I got rushed down to... Well, the next morning I got took to Catterick and I was locked up in Catterick because my unit was all the way down on the south coast, right, you know, 4-7. And so they had to wait for an escort to come and pick us up. And I remember getting locked up in there that night and just fucking looking at the walls in the cell thinking, I've fucked up here. I've really fucked up here. You know what I mean? I mean, it was nothing compared to going to a real jail, I suppose. And, you know, then got sucked out of the unit, got locked up I was in close arrest for 68 days before my court-martial, and then got sentenced and then off to Collie. And, you know, I never went to jail again after that. Got into trouble, but I never went to jail.
I went to Collie when they got rid of me.
Yeah, on the D-wing.
Did you ever see that documentary, Cutting Edge, called The Glass House?
Yeah, what a load of bollocks.
I'm on it.
Well, I've seen it on YouTube. I mean, I remember watching it on telly because it wasn't long after I got out. So I went
a few times. I'm on it.
I went to Collie in fucking hell, when was it? 1990. So I was there in 1990. So that show wasn't long after I'd got out, or it was on telly. And I keep clocking it on YouTube and going back and seeing the MPSC, the Muppets, Puppets, and Silicons. I go, yeah, I remember that one. He was an arsehole. I remember that one. Oh, he was all right. I remember that. He was a fucking knob. And I must admit, all the screws, I've said it now, the screws, the MPSC, you know, in there, they were all great. They were all great to the soldiers, you know, apart from one. I won't mention his name, but if anyone knows of an Irish horse that went missing called Shergar, they know who the fuck I'm on about because I hated him.
Does his surname begin with a G?
Yes, it does.
Oh, I happen to know the one you're on about. I've got a story about him, I'll tell you.
He was an ass.
Absolute arsehole, mate.
Yeah. Well, I got posted to Collie. I got out of Collie, right, went back to my unit, and fucking all that, you know, nice and, you know, everything hunky-dory and that. And then I got posted to 3RHA, and they were in Colchester. And, you know, I got my first car, I was married, we were driving through the quarters, and I seen him walking his dog. And I just fucking
run him over.
You know, I was tempted, but I had the fucking missus and Ben in the car. So I just wound the window down and I started shouting, "Shergar, you wanker." And he was like looking around, he must have thought, "Who the fuck are you?" I was fuming at him. I fucking hated him.
I'll tell you what he did, right, when I was there. You know, after a few weeks, when you're coming up for release, they let you out for a day so you can go down to the town and whatever. A couple of the lads went downtown, right? And they're all told before they go downtown, no sherbets, just go downtown, have the day out and come back. So they came back to the guard room. I think there was 3 of them. And he was in the guard room. And
They walked in there and went, right, you've been drinking. They went, no, we haven't, no, we haven't. And he went, right, just between me and you, lads, I'd have a pint if I was you and I've got let out. And they went, yeah, we did. Right, you fucking nicked. That's the sort of bloke he was.
Yeah.
But when I went there, right, because of what the fucking battery had said about me, I'd been stabbed in the head in Belize, by the way. So I was diagnosed as post-traumatic stress disorder, which I've never had. When I went to Colchester, I was.
Hang on a minute, you got stabbed in the head?
Yeah.
Right, so I mentioned Belize earlier, and you went, yeah, it was great. But you got stabbed in the head in Belize.
How
the fuck did you get stabbed in the head?
Yeah, minor thing.
I take it was just a bit of fun then.
Well, we were all on the piss down the local town. And because all the locals have got no money, all the girls used to come into the pub where we were, the bar where we were. And we came out the bar one night, and there's about 30 of these youths stood on the other side of the road, all with machetes, fucking knives, poles, bricks, you name it, they'd got it. The next thing I know, I can hear boom, boom going off. I turn around, the bar owner, Bobby, I think his name was, had come out with his shotgun. He was shooting up in the air, telling him to fuck off. So I was turning around, I was going, Bobby, pull the gun up in the air, mate, you're going to fucking kill somebody. And at that moment, somebody come running across the road and went, bang, and just hit me. I was gone, mate, that was it. And next thing I know, I woke up about 4 or 5 hours later in the back of a Land Rover as we pulled into airport camp to go to the hospital. And I'd got a massive headache, put my hand on my head. I got a turban on my head. I was thinking, what the fuck's gone on here? Like, I don't know. And there was a bloke asleep this side, and there was a bloke asleep that side. So I woke him up. What's going on? Oh, you're alive. I'm like, what the fuck? So I just ended up having like 30 odd stitches in my head.
Fucking hell.
But the funny thing was, right, I was lying in the hospital bed. Another lad had a bottle thrown in his mouth that smashed his teeth in and split his lip open. And we sat in the hospital bed, and that sergeant major, the one who didn't like me, turns up at the hospital, doesn't he? He walks in there. First thing he says to me, Baker, been fighting again. Turn me back on him. Just went, fuck off. Turn me back on him. That was it. When I was on, about 2 months after that, I was on a place called Baldy Beak on an exercise, and my wife wrote me a Dear John. So I'm not fucking happy, right?
Yeah.
He comes over to the gun where I am and starts ripping me a new one about the fact that my missus hadn't paid this fucking £100 or something. And I said, I'm 6,500 miles away. What do you want me to do about it? Oh, you should have more control of your wife, and you should do this and you should do. So I erupted, and this is in the middle of a gun position, right? Where you got 6 guns all around, all under camo, and I'm stood out in the open in the middle with him. And he starts fucking having a go at me. I says, you know what you want to do? Just fuck off and leave me alone before I kill you. You can't talk to me like, I said, I can and I will. Fuck off and leave me alone or I'll kill you. And off he went. So, reputation enhanced and all that. Great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And word spread around. So when I went to Colchester, I'm stood outside the office, and that Graham, that Churgal walked past.
Yeah.
Opens his gob and starts bollocking me for not standing to attention. So I just stood there, folding my arms and looked at him. And he's going red in the face and he's like this at me. And there was this old Scottish guy, this sergeant. He came out of the office, grabbed him by the arm, tugged him in the office, and shut the door. I'm still stood there. About a minute later, he opens the door, walks up to me, looks at me, and just fucking storms off down the corridor and say another fucking word to me.
The bloke was a fucking bellend.
I'd have fucking launched him. I'd have launched the bastard. He was a horrible bloke.
Yeah. There was him in another one that I didn't get on with there. The rest of them, they were great. There was just
they
two
were
of them.
Sound, yeah. They were sound. I mean, I complained about the food in there, so they left me on DROs for 3 weeks, in the kitchens.
Yeah.
Because I said, we were having meal the one day. Any complaints about your food? I said, yeah, this is fucking rubbish. You've got 1 potato, 1 carrot, 1 fucking fish finger. It's fucking rubbish. So they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, you ain't feeding us. I'll come and work in the kitchens then. So I went in the kitchens for a few weeks. But,
yeah, we had one lad who'd done that. He regretted it as well.
Yeah, what a fucking wanker that bloke was, though. He was the sort that talk about abuse of power.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I mean, you respect the rank, but when they're abusing you for no fucking reason, I can't take that, mate. I just can't take it. You know what I mean?
He was a bully. He was a bully.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, he was. Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose in a way you've got to have like good cop, bad cop type of thing as well. But there was
sometimes
it was
if
just
warranted. If it's warranted.
Yeah, but he was just nasty. He was an ass.
Because of my childhood with my dad, when I left home at 16, I swore to God I was never going to be bullied again, and I never was. I wouldn't take it. Even if it ended up me having a fight and getting beaten up over it, I'd still stand my ground. I would not be bullied. Not by nobody.
No, don't blame
me. I hate bullies, mate. Fucking hate them. Always have done. And there's a lot of them in the army. That was the problem with it. There was a hell of a lot of them who'd hide behind the rank. You know what I mean? But
no, yeah, it's the same in. There's the same in a lot of places.
Though.
You know, same in a lot of places. Like that.
So it is the minority.
So again, let's go back to your time in prison, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You've mentally prepared yourself as such to serve that length of time.
I didn't.
Or couldn't you?
I didn't. Well, no. I mean, I went back to the cell, sat there with the lad, and I was chatting with him. And I think he was coming to the end of a 9-year or something.
Yeah.
And he hadn't got long left to go. And he said, "Look, mate," he said, "I know it seems like shit now, and it is shit, but you just get your head down, get on with it. The time will fly." And it did. To be fair, it did.
Yeah.
I was always busy. I was always occupied. You know what I mean? Always working, always doing something. So the time did go pretty quick. And I was fortunate in the fact that a lot of the officers are ex-army and stuff. And if you've got manners and you treat them decently, they'll treat you decently as well. So I always had single cells. Wherever I want, I've got a single cell.
That's
you know what I mean? Which, mate, there's only a couple of times I had to pad up. You know, usually when you go to a new jail and you're there you have to go in an administration block or something for a couple of weeks. And you always have to pad up then.
Right.
But after that, they'd move me on a wing. I'd always get a single cell. Always. And there's not many of them. There's only like 1 or 2 on each wing. But I always fucking get one. You know what I mean? So I hated padding up with people. I did. I absolutely fucking hated people like that. I didn't want anybody in my room.
You're forced in with someone who you don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Is that, yeah. But come 7 o'clock on a night when they shut that door and they locked us in, that was the best time of the day for me. You know what I mean? I've got my TV. I had PlayStations in there so I could play COD or whatever. You know what I mean? I was all right. You know what I mean? I was okay. And like when I was doing the teaching English and when I was doing the cooking courses, it inspired me a lot because I was helping people to learn to do something.
Yeah.
And I got a kick out of that. I really did get a kick out of that.
So do you think it's a deterrent then? Do you think prisons should be more? Hang on. So I'm trying to rephrase this without sounding like a daily fucking mail reader. Do you think prisons are harsh enough, or do you think there should be more reform? Do you think they do enough, or not enough?
Well, before I went to jail, and I'd hear about prisoners getting Sky TV and PlayStations and all that, and I'd go, "Fuck that! They don't deserve that. They should fucking have bread and water and nothing." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But believe me, when you're there, thank God you've got a TV. I mean, I read a lot as well. I've always read a lot. I read more than 1,000 books in jail. Yeah. I'm a voracious reader. I am of books. You know what I mean? So I was okay that way. But I think like when you hear about prisoners getting PlayStations, you could have a PlayStation, but you had to buy it, and it wasn't cheap, right?
Yeah.
I had to pay 120 quid for a PlayStation 2. And it was like £10 a game, which at that time you could go into Kex and you could buy the same one for 20 quid.
Yeah.
That's how much they overcharge you to get them, you know what I mean? So you can get them, but it costs. I think deterrence-wise, these little topes that run around with knives and shit, they should get 5 years minimum, in my opinion. If you're going to carry a knife and you're going to run around the streets with it, you get 5 years.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Straight off the bat. No fucking slap on the wrist. No, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A year sent. No, 5 years, mate. If you're going to run around with a knife, 5 fucking years, because you're likely to stick it in somebody. Where else would you have it?
Yeah, it's not self-defense. You're going to stab someone. It's the culture at the moment in this country is fucked. I don't know what's going on with it.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. the problems the problems that I saw in jail. A lot of it stemmed from the gangs that were in there.
Yeah.
The black guys would keep to themselves, and then mix a lot with the whites, the blacks would. But the Muslims, especially, they're a fucking law unto themselves. I mean, they turned around to us and said we couldn't serve pork on the server. I told them to fuck off. You know what I mean? They tell me I can't eat pork. It's my favourite food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they're in some jails. I was told that in one or two Cat A jails where the Muslims run the wings, if you order pork in there, they'll stab you.
I've heard stories about the gangs, and the Muslim gangs are quite rife in British jails.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, and and it's not so much initially I'd heard stories about links with ISIS and this stuff, but again, I think that's just the Daily Mail readers. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure.
No, it's not. That's not totally incorrect. They do recruit in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do, very much so. And if you have an argument with one Muslim, you're having an argument with 10 of them. That's the way they operate. You know what I mean? I had an argument with one of them over chicken I got him one day, and he's supposed to get me half ounce of burn. He come back and he wanted to give me half the agreed amount. And I went, no. And he went, well, give me the chicken. I went, no, fuck off, you're not having it. I went and give it somebody else. And then him and all his mates come down, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you doing that? But fortunately, there's an older Muslim upstairs who I knew, who came down and said, what's going on here? I explained it to him, and he went mad at them all. He was on my side over it, because we'd agreed the deal, and then the guy tried to go back on the deal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to him, a deal was a deal. And he said, in future, mate, if you're going to sort anybody chicken out with the Muslims, come and see me, mate. I'll make sure you get what you asked for straight away. So that was the only bit of problems I had with them. Sometimes when I was teaching, you'd get people coming in there with fucking bad attitudes, especially on the cooking course. And because I had to instruct them in what they were doing, they didn't like it. You know what I mean? They'd have a go at me or whatever. But the cooking teachers, one of them, Sam, is an ex-catering corps. And the other one was a white ginger fellow. What was his name now? I'll remember in a minute. I'm terrible with names. But he was a really nice bloke. So if I ever had a problem with somebody, he'd send me outside to go and do something, to go and get some stores or something. When I come back in, the attitude had changed. And I knew it's because he'd told them what I'd done. Because I was an older man. I was like in my 50, almost 50 at that time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they'd be thinking they're all Jack the fucking Dodley, all this, you know what I mean? And he said, well, you don't want to speak to him like that, because he'll smack your head in with an hammer. I wouldn't, but that's what he'd tell them, you know what I mean?
Did you or did you find that a lot of people in prison lived on their reputations and stuff like that as well?
A lot of people,
or did they have to?
A lot of people tried to make themselves have a reputation. Oh, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do this and I'll do that. I'll stab this and I'll shoot whatever. I never said none of that.
No.
You know what I mean? Then, like I say, I had an argument with a couple of black fellas who were doing a cooking course, big black fellas, and I was saying, I've got to help you, mate. Sort this out. Well, fuck off, I don't want your help and all this. Mate, I'm only here to help you. You know what I mean? Fuck off, I don't. Okay, fair enough. Walk away. Come back in 10 minutes, and obviously either Sam or somebody else had said something to them, and their attitude had changed completely. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not saying I can do this. They're saying I have done this. There's a bit of a difference, you know what I mean? I didn't have to prove anything to anybody in there. I only ever had one fight in there with this Scouse fucking idiot, called me a nonce, so ended up dragging him in the cell and having a fight with him. It wasn't really a fight. It was just, I threw him on the bed, dived on top of him, knocked my 2 front teeth out on his head. And the guys who were on the wing come and grabbed him, dragged him out the wing and fucking threatened to do him over and all sorts. And they kicked him off the wing just because he was a troublemaker. Yeah. He'd been in, right? He had a 10-month sentence, an IPP sentence. He was still there after 10 years.
Fucking hell. I mean, I've heard stories of people like that, and it's wrong.
I bet you he's still there now.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, but listen, you would not want that bloke living on your street. I'm not kidding. It's the best place for him. You would not want him on your street. And yet, I've got a mate called Max who came out at the same time as me. He was an IPP as well. and he had like a 2-year sentence. He ended up doing 6 years, and he's out now. He was out like just before me. He's never been in trouble since. I don't think he'll ever get in trouble again. But he's on a life sentence.
Just for anyone listening, do you just want to explain what that is to them or for us?
It's indeterminate public protection, I think it's called. They stopped them 6 months before I got done. They actually stopped those sentences because they were illegal under the European Courts of Human Rights.
But there's people still in jail at the moment on them.
There's a lot of them still in jail on those sentences, yeah. And for some of them, they don't deserve to be there for that. If you got a year sentence and you're in there for 10 years, because every time you do one thing wrong, it goes on your record. That puts you back a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could have a stand-up argument with somebody over nothing, but that goes down in that book. They'll put you back a year.
Fucking hell. Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories of people who've been in for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Because of it, and they were sentenced to like a year or 2 years, but because they were given that.
That was the biggest one I met. Was that one guy who had 10 months, but was there he'd been in 10 years.
Fucking hell.
But he was a fucking idiot. Absolutely. Listen, you wouldn't if he lived in your street and he'd gone to jail. He'd be fucking glad he's gone. You know what I mean? He'd come round and rob his own granny. That one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it takes all sorts, doesn't it? Well, I'm glad you said what you said at the beginning when you started talking about prison. 99% of the people who were there deserve to be there. Cause
they do. They do. Yeah. I mean, if you consider it by the letter of the law, I went over the top with what I did. You know, but I mean, he attacked me. He'd already robbed me. The fucker attacked me. So, you know, wound me up. But I did break a few bones and whatever, you know.
Yeah, but you've done your time. So, you know, you've paid your price.
Yeah.
I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not condoning what you did, but you know, you've paid your price. You've done your dues.
Everybody who I told my story to in jail, officers included, when I told them the full facts, they went, "Fucking hell, mate, you shouldn't be here."
Yeah.
Because, like I said at the time, I was training to be a teacher. Do you know what I mean? I'd already done 2 years at uni. I was waiting to do my last year at university. I should have been teaching now. I can't do that because of my conviction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that stopped me having a career in that way. But when I came out on probation, the first thing, I had to stay in like a hostel for a few weeks before they sort you out somewhere to live.
Yeah.
And as soon as I came out, I spoke to my probation officer, and he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "The first thing I'm going to do is go around my mates and have a joint, mate. That's the first thing I'm going to do." He went, "You shouldn't be telling me that." He says, "You know, I can send you back for that." And I said, "Well, look, Gary, if you want to send me back for smoking a joint, that's up to you, mate. Do you know what I mean?" I said, "I'm not going to be in trouble. I'm not a thief. I don't go around stealing. I'm not going to beat anybody up. None of that shit. But if I have a joint, it chills me out. It calms me down. I'm a much mellower person when I've had it."
How easy was it to get in, Nick? I've got to ask this. Because you read about all these stories, all, you know, drug parties going on, fucking homebrew parties, and you see the idiots with mobile phones when they pulled them out their arse and making videos and getting them online. How easy is it to actually get hold of this shit in jail?
I can get you anything you want, mate, within 10 minutes of you asking me.
Fucking hell.
That's how easy it was. That's how easy it was. I mean, I got high virtually every day I was in jail. I'll not lie about it.
So the prison service is like fighting a losing battle, basically, then?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But the thing is, right, and I heard officers say this because I saw people drink hooch.
Yeah.
You know, homebrew.
Yeah.
And that caused nothing but trouble.
Well,
because they get pissed and they'd be fighting. Straight away they'd be fighting. I mean, I knew one guy used to distill the hooch, right? And he'd turn it into fucking vodka, mate. I'm not kidding you. And he used to sell it 50 quid a bottle.
Fucking hell.
50 quid a litre. And he couldn't make enough of it. I mean, he did, because I got in the oranges, you know what I mean? But but it's all scratch each other's back sort of thing, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But drugs are rife in there, mate. Hooch was rife in there. In every jail I went in. That wasn't just in one. I went to 6 different jails, and every jail's the same. Every jail, within half an hour of you landing in that jail and being put on a wing, you could score if you wanted to.
Jesus
if
Christ.
You got the money.
Yeah.
If you got the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jesus.
but it's that easy to get. But mainly they were doing a lot of spice and stuff in there then. And there's idiots who smoke spice, and it turns them into zombies, because they smoke too much.
Yeah.
And I used to compare it like, if you're a drinker and you got a bottle of vodka, if you just nick that whole bottle of vodka down in one, you're going to be falling over in a minute, ain't you?
Yeah.
Well, that's what they were doing with spice. Instead of smoking a little bit of it just to get a high, they'd smoke a lot of it and get, you know what I mean? And I've seen people let themselves get punched for it, kicked around the floor for it. I mean, I've seen one bloke who was spiced up. He walked out of a cell, went over to the pool table, dropped his trousers, and proceeded to shag the corner pocket in the pool table. With like 50 people crying watching him. The officers were crying watching him. It was that funny watching him, you know what I mean?
I mean, I'd heard it was bad, but I didn't think it was as easily accessible as that, really.
Oh, it's chock full of it, mate. When I was there, right, when I first started there...
How was it get in?
Pardon?
How was it get in? Or is that a dodgy subject?
No. When I first started there, weed was quite common, and spice had only just started coming into jails.
Yeah.
But the longer I went on, weed went out the window, and people just went on to spice, and they stopped doing heroin as well. You couldn't sell heroin in jail when I was there. Nobody, there'd only be one or two people who'd do it. They all wanted spice. But when I started off, they were smuggling it in like they normally do. Prisoners would get sent back to jail on a short remand period with their arse stuffed with drugs, so they could make 30 or 40 grand in a couple of months while they were in there.
Fucking hell.
I mean, a lot of money, mate, right? A lot of money they'd make. But then it went on. When they started being more strict on the searches and stuff, people were getting the liquid that you make spice out of and covering letters with it. Yeah? So right. You'd soak the letter like you soak a photo in photo ink, you know what I mean? And then they'd send the letter in, and then you'd smoke the letter.
Fucking hell.
And the letter, right, which say it was an A4 size piece of paper, that is worth £1,000. That letter, because you can break it down to so many little things. I mean, the average, I'll show you what the average spice deal was for a £5 in there. Can you see this little tiny piece of paper there in my hand?
Yeah.
That was a £5's worth.
And that's potent enough, whatever's on that.
Fuck me, for me, I'd make 6 or 7 goes out of that.
Jesus.
Because what I'd do, I'd cut it down to a tiny bit, like that.
Yeah.
And just smoke that. If I smoked that whole thing, I'd be falling over in myself.
Fucking hell. I'm definitely in the well. I was going to say I'm definitely on the wrong side of the. Well, I'm on the good side of the law, I think. But yeah, I mean, I know nothing about this shit, and I hope that most of the people who listen to this know nothing about this as well. You know,
it shocked the shit out of me when I was there.
I can imagine.
But, I mean, I smoked all the time I was in there, and I made no bones to the officers that I did it as well.
Well, I suppose if they're thinking you're smoking weed, you're going to be chilled. You're going to you know what I mean?
They knew I was smoking. They knew I told them.
I wouldn't say they'd turn a blind eye, but they'd be quite happy that, all right, he's in his cell. He's just chilling.
That's it. I was in my cell doing it on a night after bang up. I wasn't walking around in the day falling over the fucking pool table or whatever doing it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what they don't like. This is a true story. 30 days before I finished my sentence, right? I'm in Oakwood Jail. I've been there for 2 years, working in the kitchens. This is about 6:30 on the night. Bang up was about 7 o'clock. And a guy on the wing had just bought a sheet of paper, A4 paper. So he comes into the cell. He said, "Mark, can you try a little bit of this? Just tell me if it's any good or not before I spend out the money on it." So I went, "Well, I don't want to try it. I'll have to bang up." He said, "No, I need it now. I've got to go and pay for it now before bang up." So I tried it, right?
Yeah.
Sat there, had a little tooth. Yeah, it hit me. I said, "Yeah, mate, go and buy it." Off he went. 7 o'clock, bang up. The officers come along, and the one who was on my wing, he was ex-army. I can't remember his name now. He was a decent fellow, engineer, I think he was. And when they bang up, he'd open the door, poke his head in, and went, "Good night, Mark." And I'd go, "Good night," and off he'd go. So he pokes his head in, and he's to this side of me. The door's up there. And I'm sat there looking at the telly in front of me, right, with a book on my lap.
Yeah.
And he went, "Good night, Mark." I went, "Good night." Didn't look up. He went, "Good night, Mark." I went, "Good night," and didn't look up. He went, "Mark?" I went, "Yeah." He went, "Look at me." I turned around and looked at him. My eyes were fucking bright red. He went, "Oh my God." He went, "Fuck you," and shut the door. Here's me thinking the next day I'm in trouble, right? He's on duty in the morning. I went up to him. I said, "Gov, what's going to happen about that? I'm going to get charged." He said, "I didn't see nothing, mate." I said, "You sure?" He went, "Look, mate, you've been here for 2 years. You'd never caused me a fucking problem. I didn't see nothing." He said, "Just be careful when you're doing it." And I said, "Well, I don't normally do it till after bang up. You know what I mean?" He said, "Just be careful." Couple of days later, the fucking same guy come up to me, bought some more. "Can you try this, Mark?" So I tried it, right? The same screw come into my cell, 6:30 on the night. He opened the door, he went, "Oh, Mark," he says, "you've got to come up." He said, "The wing manager," which is like one of the head screws, he said, "she's up in the office now. She wants to see you right now." And I'm like, "Oh, my fucking God." So I had to stagger up there, literally. Went up to this office. I walked in there. She sat there. She saw me walk in. She went, "Oh, no, Mark. Sit down." I sat down. She goes, "Mark." She goes, "By rights, I ought to charge you. You know that, don't you? Put you on basic and charge you." I said, "Well, look, miss, I've got, 3 weeks, 24 days left?" I said, "Would you really put me on basic for a couple of weeks when I've got 24 days left?" I said, "Look, I'll keep it quiet." I said, "I keep it on the down low." And the officer, to his credit, he turns around and said to her, "Yeah, he does. He keeps it quiet." She went, "All right, just piss off back to your cell." And off I went. Never got done with it. It was hilarious. Never got done with it.
I suppose it'd be hard for them to just fucking hammer down on it, really.
Yeah.
Because there's that many people on it or whatever. And
I was always honest with them. You know,
yeah, but
there's
not enough prison staff to deal with it.
There's not. But if they do catch you, they catch you stone like they'll put you on. There's a wing which is called a basic cell wing, which has got nothing in the cells. Right. You've got no TV and nothing, and you go in there for a week or 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
And then before you go back to your own cell or back to another wing, they do that. And that was constantly with people going in there for that.
But it wasn't a deterrent.
No. Because don't forget, I'd say 90% of these prisoners are used to doing drugs on the outside.
Yeah.
And to stop doing it when you go in there, it messes with your head and all sorts. You need that release to be able to get to sleep. I mean, to start off with, when I went in there, I couldn't sleep on a night. You know what I mean? It was like, what the fuck? And every little noise I hear, what the fuck's going on? You know what I mean? It was horrible. And that helped me sleep. And obviously, I like doing it anyway. So, I'm not going to lie about it. So I just carried on doing it. But I kept it quiet. I never went to work like it or nothing. I always kept it on the quiet. And so it was all right. And because I didn't run around fucking selling it, I didn't run around acting the idiot on it. I always kept myself to myself. They give you leeway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair
You're
enough.
all right with them. They're all right with you. That was the way I found them out to be.
So you were coming up to the end of your sentence now.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were looking forward to that at the time, and I can imagine time wouldn't come quick enough. How did your time in the prison? Did it change towards the end? Did they help you transition in prison, or is it just like you say, right, here's your kid, fuck off out?
Basically, yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Here's your kid,
fair
fuck
enough
off.
Then.
Yeah, here's your kid, fuck off.
So then they palmed off into the probation service, and it's their job to try and get you back into society, type of thing. How does that work? Does it work?
Well, I've got nothing but praise from my probation officers.
Yeah.
I had the same one from the day I went in till when I come out. Gary, his name was. And then when I went to Dudley, to the probation office there, first of all, I had to go in every week and sign on. But as soon as I turned up there, he put me in with trainee probation officers who got new people to work with to sit when they did group sessions, when they got loads of young kids in there, young offenders and whatever.
Yeah.
For me to sit in there to act as a bit of a moderator and a bit of a, boys, you shouldn't be doing this, you know what I mean? Look at me, I'm an old person. You don't want to be fucking like me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To sort of mentor them a little bit. So I did that with the probation service. I said to Gary, look, Gary, I'm going to smoke weed when I come out, mate. If you want to send me back for that, you can. And he said, well, by rights, I should, but I'm not going to. And so he didn't. When he changed over to a young lady called Robin. When she took over, he called me into the office. He sat me down. He said, "Robin, this is your new probation officer." He says, "Mark, tell Robin what you do." I said, "Well, I sit at home, I smoke a lot of weed, and I play my Xbox." And she went, "You can't tell me that." I said, "You asked me what I do." And Gary said, "That's what he does. He'll never be no trouble to you. That's what he does. Leave him be." And I've had like 3 or 4 probation officers since then. I even moved out the area, went to another area. And so I was a bit worried about how the new probation officer had handled that news, you know what I mean, that I smoke weed. Because it's a sending back offence straight away, that is. I mean, my mate Max is on the APP. He does smoke weed, but he can't smoke weed. If he's caught, he's going back to jail. And because he's IPP, they'll keep him in for 2 or 3 years just for having a fucking joint. Which is wrong. That's very, very wrong.
Where do you draw the line, though? Where do you say... You've got to have a line, haven't you? You've got to have a rule.
Yeah, but I mean, knowing what I do know about weed and stuff, like Max was, when he was younger, he was a fucking hooligan. He don't mind telling me he got in trouble for GBH because that's the sort of person he was.
Yeah.
But when he started smoking weed, that sort of person left him entirely. And it does with me. Like I explained to my probation, you can say what the fuck you want to me when I've had a job. I wouldn't give a shit. You wouldn't wind me up. I'd just laugh. You wouldn't you know what I mean? There's nothing you could do to me. It would not wind me up. Yet if I'm straight, I can, you know what I mean? And I don't like being like that. So when I came to Stratford to live, I had to go and see the new probation officer. He was only a young kid. And I went to see him. I said, "Has Gary told you I smoke weed?" He went, yeah, it's no problem. I said, "Well, I'm going to still smoke it. You know what I mean?" He went, "I don't have a problem with it, mate." So they don't. And I had the guy whose house I'm sharing at the moment. He lent a car to somebody and she got pulled over because she hadn't fucking insured it. So the cops all turned up at the house the other week. And I'm stood there. I've just had a joint upstairs. I come downstairs, open the front door, and the cops are stood there. "We can smell something in there, mate." I said, "Yeah, go and speak to my probation officer." He says, "I can do it." "Oh, who's that then?" So they took down the details and all that. I haven't heard a thing about it. You know what I mean? But they could have come in and searched if they'd have wanted to. You know what I mean?
So how long have you been out then?
4 years.
And you're still on probation?
Yeah, because I had a 12-year sentence. Yeah. I had to do 6 years in jail and then 6 years on probation.
Wow. So, I mean, that's going to screw with your life as well, isn't it? I mean, I can imagine going for a job interview or something like that is going to be a nightmare.
Well, it can be, yeah, but because of my lung and everything, I can't work anyway.
Yeah.
I'm fucked, basically, health-wise, you know what I mean?
I don't know why I'm laughing.
Fucked. I'm absolutely fucked.
Oh, fucking hell. So life's not looking too well for you then?
Mate, I don't care, I'm happy. Listen, I'm not trying to pull punches. Nothing. I've had a fucking shit life, but there's been interspersed with pure joy at times.
Yeah.
And I'll always hold on to that joy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter's everything to me. You know, she's 18 now. She's a qualified dental nurse. She's doing a thing. She's never been out nightclubbing in her life, and I'm so proud of her being that sort of person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really proud of her. The only regrets I've got is quite a few of my mates that I was in with the army, who I served with, they've died.
Yeah.
And I never got a chance to see them again. You know.
Yeah.
A couple of them, like especially Harry, who I mean, I'm so proud of some of them. One of them's a major still in the Royal Artillery.
Yeah.
We went to, I went to the unit 6 months before him, and we did our leadership course together. Great kid called Billy. I've got another one became an RSM. I think it was 3 RHA became RSM of.
Who was that?
Pony Paneskis.
Yeah. No, Pony.
Was it 3? Was it? Do you know him?
I know him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the name more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, he was on my gun when I first went to 3-4 Battery.
Yeah.
There was me, Pony, Chris Tierney, and a lad called Dowie. Another one who he was a bombardier at the time. He went on to the Army Air Corps, became a Apache pilot.
Fucking hell.
And he's a major now. You know what I mean? I'm so pleased for him. My little best mate, Harry, God bless him, became a sergeant major. I was, you know what I mean? That just so fucking pleased for him. So pleased for him.
You don't have the regret of what could have been?
Oh, I've always had that.
It was a fucking shit question, that, wasn't it, really?
Even till today, mate. Even till today. I mean, when I was thinking about coming on this podcast and I was thinking about what I'm going to say and stuff, and it brought back a lot of memories, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I was supposed to go in the fucking intelligence corps. That was what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to go in MI6, but I never did. So I was wasted. Do you know what I mean? What I could have done was wasted.
Yeah.
But that's just down to me as well. I smoke fucking. I can't turn around and say, well, you know, I'm innocent. I've never done nothing. No, I had a fucking don't bully me attitude, and I like to smoke weed. That doesn't go down well in the army.
No.
You know?
Yeah, it just doesn't fit.
But when I went to the reunion and I saw those people again, and it was all hugs and stuff, and it was, you know, tears and stuff. That made my day to see those guys again. That I've been waiting for that for 30 fucking years.
And it helped.
Oh, mate. I mean, I took my friend with me. I've had my mate Nathan. I took him for 20 years. Took him to the reunion, and I told him all about my life in the army before, you know. But after he'd heard us talking and everything, he went, "Fucking hell! I didn't realise you had it so bad, mate." But I said, "But Nathan, if I had to do it again tomorrow, I'd do exactly the fucking same. I don't regret it. I don't regret a single minute of it. I do regret leaving under the circumstances I did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I was better than that. I should
Shit
never
happens,
have done it.
Shit happens, doesn't it? And you can't change the past. So there's no point in worrying about it.
If they'd have given me that choice, right, when they'd have done me for that, and they said, right, you never touch it again, or you're out the army, I would never have touched it again.
Do you think?
I know, because the army meant that much to me.
And they never you couldn't. Well, I mean, you were the first one picked up on CDT, so
yeah.
No matter what you were going. I mean, nowadays, you know,
they're staying for coke and all sorts these days, mate.
Yeah, no. It's a different world. You know what I mean? It is a different world.
It didn't help. It was in the early 90s, you know, when they're just getting rid of everybody left, right, and Chelsea during the cutbacks and all that.
Yeah.
They just wanted rid of people. And because I wouldn't fucking bend over and take it, you got to go, mate.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, we're coming up to nearly an hour and a half on this one now, so I think we've got. We've got the gist of your story. And it's been a great story, but a shit life.
What I want to say is, listen, it was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
It was the worst thing I ever did. But I loved those guys in the army. I loved my time in the army. I loved what I did, and I was fucking good at it as well.
I mean, as long as you've got the memories of that, no one can take that away from you.
No, they can't. No.
No matter what life deals with you, you've still got them memories. But like I said earlier, or just now, you know, you can't change your past. There's no point in fucking worrying about it anymore. You know.
That's right. Yeah.
You just got to look forward, haven't you? Really.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people don't.
I mean, I've got to say this as well. There was a kid at the same time as me. He got kicked out because he had a brother, and his brother decided he was going to beat somebody up one night, go in his room, beat somebody up, and this kid went with him like a fucking idiot. And he got kicked. They both got kicked out. That one kid, he died years later from a heroin overdose.
You know, that could have been a different life, yeah.
It wasn't the drugs that killed him. It was a broken fucking heart because he loved the army as much as I did.
Yeah. We
went to Bisley together. We shot for the Royal Artillery at Bisley together, me and this kid. So I knew him quite well, you know what I mean? And he was a really nice kid. His brother was a dickhead, but he was a really nice kid.
Yeah.
And his brother dragged him down. And the funny thing is, before he left the army, he never even smoked a joint. But because they kicked him out, and I know what it did to him. I know it broke his heart that much that he ended up dying from a heroin overdose.
Oh, fucking hell.
And it was a broken heart that fucking killed him, not the heroin.
Yeah.
A broken fucking heart, mate. That's what it does to some people. You know, some people who always wanted to be a soldier, and if it gets taken away through whatever circumstances, it can absolutely fucking devastate you.
Devastate their lives. I mean, it's not just the army. It happens to people who've, you know, you see footballers Look, fucking hell, George Best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't get a play. He turned alcoholic, or I mean, that's an easy a simplified version of it, but it's the same type of thing, But it is right. So
long before he died.
I'm just going to say thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Now,
listen, this has been very cathartic too, mate. I tell you,
it's what it is. Obviously, we don't know each other. We've never met each other before in our fucking lives. And this episode has been completely different to any of the others, and not what I was expecting. You know what I mean? I looked you up on Facebook, and there wasn't much there. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, I couldn't even tell what regiment you were. Normally you log on to someone and go, oh, they were in that regiment, or friends of friends of friends of friends, whatever like that. And I thought, fucking hell, is this bloke a Walt? You know what I mean? I was like, fucking hell. But there was like nothing on you. But now I know why.
One of them in jail, right? There was this guy, and somebody asked people who'd been in the army or whatever. This guy put his hand up and says, yeah, I was ex-Marines. What's the degree? Okay. He says,
they're never catering corps, are they? They're always Marines, Paras, or SAS.
Well, he says he was a sergeant in Marines, right? But then in the next sentence, he turned around and said, yeah, I used to make them all salute me when I was a sergeant.
Yeah, fucking bellend.
Oh, did you really? What's your army number, mate? Oh, I forgot. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Bellend, mate. Bellend. And I still meet him today. I still meet him today. If it comes out in a conversation that somebody will, oh, Mark's ex-army. Somebody will say, oh, I'm ex-army. What were you in then? I was in the Rifles. When we were in the Rifles in 1990, really, they didn't fucking exist then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right, well, I'm going to say goodnight to you now. Again, thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you as well. And I've enjoyed your story, as fucking mental as it's been.
Thank you.
I don't know what I'm going to entitle this one when I do it. I was fucking hell. Don't
do what this guy does.
yeah. How not to join the army.
Yeah. How not to have a career in the army, mate.
Yeah. Fucking hell. Right, I'll stop the recording there. 2 secs. Well, thanks for getting this far. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. Yes, it was a bit different to the ones I normally do. Quite an interesting story. But as you probably come away with the feeling that I did, that Mark seems quite happy with his lot in life. He has regrets, but that's the way life is. So next week I'm going to be talking to Louise Walters, who tells us about her own varied career, from the dental corps to REME, and finally commissioning into the AGC, and ultimately a decision to leave the military and move to Dubai. So that's one to look out for. Hopefully that one might be out on video as well. Okay, so thanks for listening. Hopefully look forward to the next one. Bye-bye now.